The children in this hospital are getting proper care. That was the response from Oklahoma Children's Memorial Hospital today. Not only that,
the allegations that lie behind this intended legal action are irresponsible. They're not valid.
The allegations that children born with spina bifida, a birth defect of the spine, whose parents did not have sufficient financial resources to ensure quality life, were not given life-saving surgery.
No one has established, and no one in the hospital world has found evidence to confirm that a particular child was actually denied surgery because the child was from a poor family or was from a small town or was from a minority group or anything of that sort. Now, I assume that the plaintiffs are taking on the burden of trying to prove that happened. We'll just have to see.
We have not discriminated in terms of treatment of kids based on any other criteria other than their medical need.
Fred and Veronica Donnelly are appalled by the allegations. Their daughter was treated for spina bifida. Veronica is the president of the Spina Bifida Association in Tulsa.
They're there to heal. They're not there to make qualitative decisions about where you're going to be in 10 years.
Oklahoma Children's Memorial Hospital says it is in strict compliance with state and federal rules regarding the protection of sick children, and says it always has been. Terry Cook, News 4.
The man opened fire 3 or 4 times, hitting the lady in the hand, which time she hit the door and the glass shattered, and she cut herself on some of the glass, and then went in the other door, and they grabbed her, the people inside, and put her and locked her inside a vault where this guy was roaming around looking for her.
Woodward authorities arrested 24-year-old Marshall Henry Ellis 2 hours after someone shot a state agent during a botched drug bust last night. According to witnesses, Ellis sold amphetamines to Agent William Ross Stewart in the parking lot of a Woodward fast food restaurant. Moments later, when Agent Stewart and 2 other officers attempted to arrest Ellis, the suspect reportedly fired several blasts from a 12-gauge sawed-off shotgun.
The agent from the Bureau of Narcotics was very close to the vehicle at this point and received gunfire at very close range. He was, of course, wounded at that time. Then shortly after that, Detective Mark Chenley from our department received gunfire as well and was also wounded.
Bond was denied for Ellis after the Woodward District Attorney promised to seek the death penalty for him. Searchers reportedly found a sawed-off 12-gauge shotgun a few blocks away from the murder scene this morning. Ballistics experts will attempt to determine if the gun was used to kill the agent and to wound the detective.
The State Narcotics Bureau refused to release a photograph of Agent Stewart. The agency said it was worried that if the slain agent's picture was shown on television, it might jeopardize ongoing drug investigations in northern Oklahoma. Scott Wallace, News 4 in Woodward.
We know that the hurt, pain, and sense of loss cannot easily be replaced, nor can the police family feel the same likeness as losing a family member. But we, the members of the police family, can and do understand. We take great pride in the actions and sacrifices made by our brothers and sisters of our profession.
Like I said, I don't really know. There again, don't. Just, yeah.
Hey, Kelly, is there any more bags there?
Yeah, I hollered at her when I got up, and first time I hollered, she didn't answer. And then I called her again, that butane tank was spewing, and I asked her if she is hurt, and she said my left arm broke, and I said, just lay still.
I would imagine that when I mention the word radiation, you probably experience some negative feelings. And that's a perfectly normal response in the light of all the bad stuff we've heard about atomic energy and nuclear war. But let me tell you, there's a whole different positive element to this question. Without radiation, modern medicine as we know it would be non-existent. There would be no x-rays to see if bones are broken, chest x-rays to look for pneumonia or other lung diseases, or of arteries to see if they are blocked. Radiation of any form should be recognized for what it can do for us and to it. That is, treated with respect. Because in high doses, it can cause cancer.
We all have our little special concerns, and if you see your doctor about it, he's apt to call it a phobia. People generally know what phobias are now. So cancerophobia and radiation phobia are two things that are widespread, because cancer and radiation are two of the most feared words in the English language.
Any long-term exposure to radiation has the potential for hurting you. Now take sunlight, for instance. When you're out in the sun getting a tan, you're actually burning your skin with ultraviolet radiation. And after several years of this kind of exposure, you can develop a skin cancer. But the point that I want to emphasize at the moment is that the radiation used for the diagnosis of diseases by a physician is usually not going to hurt you. Radiation should not be feared, just respected for what it is. I'm Dr. Red Duke. I'm sure you've heard of someone, or maybe even known someone, who had a type of cancer that was going to be treated with radiotherapy. What's going to happen to that person is for the next 4 or 5 weeks, they're going to go to some kind of a center for 4 or 5 times a week to have their malignancy treated with a radiation. Radiation, administered in the hands of an expert, has the ability to stop cancer cells from multiplying and to kill cancer cells which are already present if there's not too many of them. For a normal cell to grow, it must divide from 1 into 2, and it must go through a very complicated and undisturbed process. If this process is disturbed during the division, 2 imperfect or damaged cells will result therefrom. Radiation is used deliberately to create such a disturbance.
Now, the difference between cancer cells and normal human cells is that cancer cells do not have the ability to repair. So, if we damage a cancer cell when it is going through this process, it will die.
There's no question that radiation is a very powerful form of treatment, but cancer is a very powerful disease as well. Did you know that 90% of people with stage 1 Hodgkin's disease can be cured with X-ray alone? And there's a very high percent of people with cancer of the uterus and cervix that are cured with X-ray alone. Like everything else, we have to seek a balance. In this instance, appreciation versus respect. I'm Dr. Red Duke. You know, there's a whole lot of negative publicity around these days concerning the use of any form of irradiation. It's gotten to the point that some folks think that just a chest X-ray each year will cause lung cancer. This is simply not true. But there's no question that irradiation can cause cancer if you're exposed to massive doses of it. But chances are that's not likely to happen. But if an area of your body is overexposed, one of three things will happen to the damaged cell. They will either repair themselves and heal, they will die, or they will undergo some kind of a structural change. Now, another word for this structural change is mutation.
This mutation may cause this cell to do nothing but make more cells. And if it makes enough of these, it becomes a tumor. And if it behaves like cancer by spreading, that in fact is what it is.
The X-rays you get from any kind of diagnostic medical exam is not going to cause these mutations to occur. In fact, the government standard for a safe occupational radiation exposure is equal to a chest X-ray 5 days a week for 50 weeks a year. Life is simply too short to go around worrying about all the what-ifs that might happen to you. There's no question that large doses of radiation can hurt you, but your chances of that occurring to you are very remote. We have excellent safety controls in our culture. Besides that, irradiation can be a great friend. I'm Dr. Red Duke.
The receiver is charged with the responsibility of running it on a day-to-day basis, not trying to solve its ultimate problems, of which it has plenty. Now, they say they want to help the hall, but they're not. To the contrary, they're hindering our efforts to bail it out.
What's going on behind these walls is in question tonight by the parents of some of the clients who are served here. A grand jury may have handed down indictments against its interim director and its director of nursing, but they are still on duty here, and that has some parents worried. Jean Avey has an epileptic son who resides here. She says she is finally coming forward with information about how he has been treated at the facility after 3 years. Avey says administrators accuse her son of faking seizures. She's found her son without proper bedding, and she says numerous items have been stolen from him. She says she has feared retaliation against her son by administrators, but is in a catch-22 situation. She has nowhere to place her son.
I would give anything in the world if I could care for my son myself, but I'm unable to physically and financially. And I haven't known what to do. It really tears me up because I love my son.
Jo Hazlitt also has a son at the facility. She too complains about the type of care her child is getting.
They don't sterilize the bathtubs in any way. After one person takes a bath, the other one just tops in. So he got a severe staph infection in his incision.
The Department of Human Services was called to the facility on Friday to investigate a complaint of abuse. The report is still being looked into. Interim Director Bob Martin has refused to comment to the allegations.
I wouldn't do anything to violate city, county, state, or federal law.
In the last 4 months that News 4 has been reporting this story, the center has lost its director of 17 years. The new interim director and the director of nursing have both been indicted on misdemeanor charges. The center has also lost its national affiliation status, and it has also been charged $180,000 by the Department of Human Services for falsifying documents. And while the adults continue their bickering, it appears now that the children at this center may be suffering. And that's something that nobody wanted to have happen. Ann Nyberg, News 4.
We had 4,200 prisoners when I came to Oklahoma in '79, and now we have around 87. So it's growing incredibly, and I don't see any end in sight, and it just means we'll have to pay the tab.
We are very cautious about accepting cases like that because we have limited manpower and limited time and an overwhelming caseload as it is. And when we don't have the luxury of going to the crime scene, a one-year-old case, we want to make sure that there is legitimate work to be done, something that we can add to this investigation. We try to avoid getting in and just duplicating effort.
When the students and faculty at OU go looking for research materials, they may find the books or journals they're looking for aren't available. That's only one of the problems budget cutbacks have produced at the OU and OSU libraries, according to a report delivered to the state regents for higher education. In essence, the report says the libraries have been underfunded by millions of dollars.
Funding has really affected our ability to maintain, even at the level, the even minimum level, in providing the kind of resources, the program necessary to carry out teaching and learning.
Lack of funds has caused library hours to be shortened, reducing employees by a dozen, and most critically, not buying books and journals. For example, the library has canceled 1,000 subscriptions to periodicals. They were already several thousand behind libraries in other states. And the study revealed the percentage of the budget going to university libraries around the state was below minimum standards.
We were below averages of regional and national averages. Comparing similar type of institution within 10 states that we often compare.
Lee says the OU library can't wait much longer for more money. And he says the whole state suffers if university libraries deteriorate. Jeff Fowler, News 4 at the University of Oklahoma.
It's cute and looks nice going up and down the streets, but it does not, in my opinion, for the amount of money that this trust expends, it does not serve a need that is either demanded for by the public or warrants that kind of expenditure.
This is the way 23-year-old Sheila Grant looked a week and a half ago when her mother picked her up from the United Cerebral Palsy Center in Del City to see her doctor. Barbara Grant had been told by monitors at the facility that Sheila had a rash and she scratched it. Then she says she was told that her daughter scooted across the floor on her own and caused the abrasions. Sheila's doctor says that wouldn't have been physically possible for his client.
We suspected that she couldn't have done this herself, that somebody else had to participate to cause those type of abrasions or burns.
Following Dr. O'Keefe's diagnosis, he filed an abuse report with the Department of Human Services. The DHS is now investigating the case. Following the incident, Grant took her daughter out of the center, saying she feared for her daughter's safety. When she was packing Sheila's clothes, she found something else that disturbed her.
I came across this weight, and I picked it up and I looked at it, and I knew what it was, but I couldn't imagine why that it was in Sheila's drawer, because Sheila can just barely lift her feet up to walk with you holding onto her hands. She certainly wouldn't need this probably 5-pound weight or more on her feet. The first thing that came to my mind was this was how they were keeping her in bed.
Grant says she will not take her daughter back to the facility until new administrators are put into place. She says current interim director Bob Martin and director of nursing Claudine Bellows aren't fit to run the center. Martin had no comment today to those allegations. Ann Nyberg, News 4.
It's a good sign. It's a very good sign. I'm very pleased. You know, no one's left. I'm leaving, but I'm coming back. So that's it. Thank you.
Any agreements yet? No.
Market approval on item number 1 in the amount not to exceed defective. No clerk copy. There are other bids. The late bid was received at 10 such as sewage treatment plants. So the federal budget, our own economy, and also the fact that we don't have any identifiable and regular source of capital improvements money. We haven't had a bond issue passed by the citizens here since 1976. It's a long, long time.
One day he walked in 15 minutes after the robbery started, and without warning, and was forced to walk into the back room and view 3 mutilated bodies and then wait for it to happen to him.
5 fugitives from a maximum security cell block at the state prison managed to pick a lock on a fire exit, crawl through the false ceiling in an abandoned cell block, and then crawl under a steel security fence. Allegedly, the entire incident happened right under the nose of a guard in a nearby prison tower. The first escape from maximum security in nearly 3 years sparked an extensive manhunt. 100 officers scoured the rough terrain surrounding McAlester. The Foot Patrol produced few clues. The warden concentrated his search to the south, but apparently law officers were looking in the wrong direction. Early this morning, city police found this abandoned car. 2 teenagers from Muskogee told authorities that 3 of the 5 escapees abducted them from the Muskogee McDonald's, commandeered their car, and then released them unharmed. The three escapees reportedly identified themselves as George Stidham, Amos Jennings, and J. Lewis Bromley. Bromley allegedly shot and killed a Chickasha man after his last prison escape from Lexington.
The suspects were last seen northbound on Anderson Road in an older model, dark-colored Mercury.
City police have been following leads of possible sightings all day, but nothing has panned out. Authorities don't believe the men have guns, but they should be considered dangerous.
Even with the tire tool, screwdriver, and knife, with the criminal background that these subjects have, I would consider them to be armed and dangerous even with that.
Prison officials have initiated a statewide alert for all 5 escapees. Law enforcement officials in neighboring states have been alerted to the possibility that the fugitives may be leaving Oklahoma. Kurt Autry, News 4.
Police are still combing remote areas outside Pawhuska, any buildings or homes occupied or abandoned that may give a clue to the whereabouts of Carrie Dale Heron, Charles Alfred Davis, and Kevin Lee Hilton. All 3 are still believed to be armed. But authorities later left each spot the same as before, without new clues. Authorities from all over the area, including the Oklahoma Highway Patrol, are participating in the search. And even in the event that the escapees may have crossed the state lines, even Kansas State troopers have been brought in. But the 2-day search has left them only little to go on.
Tuesday night, they stole a truck, and we had sight of them that night. And somewhere around 11 o'clock, they wrecked that truck out in the pasture here. And then we actually haven't had sight of them since that time, but last night, yesterday afternoon, the dogs picked up on their tracks. So, and it's in this area, and we just feel positive they're here.
Wayman refers to a 10-mile area outside of Pawhuska, where he believes the 3 men are now traveling on foot. The search plane scouts the area overhead, while officers are stationed throughout on back roads. Despite the area's size, Wayman believes time can play to his benefit.
Well, if we can keep them without food and we all don't wear out, we'll get them.
Sam Baker, Channel 6 Eyewitness News, Osage County.
That man had his head pulled back over that seat.
I couldn't walk. I mean, it was that bad, where it was almost the wheelchair.
The hope is that maybe diabetics will take 1-a-day tablets with breakfast, oral tablets, and prevent the progression, or if not prevent them, slow down the progression of the complications. That's a realistic hope.
Jeannie and Charlotte Aylor sat quietly in district court this afternoon as the prosecution's first witness testified how he had paid the women $1,200 plus a car for Jeannie's baby girl. Randy Burns told the jury he had known the Aylors for 3 or 4 years. He and his wife are not able to have children, and they wanted to raise a child. State lawyers allege the women then repossessed the baby from Burns with the help of a woman posing as a welfare agent. They also say they resold the infant to a Bowley couple. On cross-examination, defense lawyers repeatedly pointed out inconsistencies between earlier testimony and a sworn statement Burns had given the police back in July of 1984. Burns is a 2-time convicted felon, once for kidnapping. But the witness said he could explain the discrepancies. He told the defense counsel he talked to both Jeannie and her mother and didn't always remember which one did the talking. Burns also testified he told Charlotte Aylor he was concerned about the arrangement. He then said Charlotte told him not to worry. They had done it before. Even though this is a misdemeanor offense, this trial is expected to last 3 or 4 days. The reason is the nature of the charge. The penalty for child trafficking may just be a year in the county jail and a $1,000 fine, but prosecutors figure there's a lot more at stake here than a prison term. Kevin Ogle, News 4 at the Oklahoma County Courthouse.